Welcome again to another episode of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm a mental performance coach for hockey players throughout North America, Canada, into Europe. I'm across from Jeff Lerg, former national champion at Michigan State, former professional hockey player. Today, we're going to have Natalie on, Natalie Ferentz, who's helped us with all the production, but we're bringing her in here for our weekly segment to talk about questions that you've had.
Not on for that long, but so we're going to get into our segment where we have our listeners write in questions. So our first question that we had write in is, what makes it so important to stay dialed always?
Well, 100% dialed in 100% of the time. Someone's a long-term listener, it sounds like. Well, really, we can't always be 100% dialed in. We have to peak at the right time. So for me, that means doing the little things right each and every day, every moment you get, so that when it matters most, you are 100% dialed in. So that sounds intimidating to be 100% dialed in all the time, but really that's just doing the simple things well over and over and over. Again, it's not to intimidate you, it's just to simplify it. And then when the time comes to perform, that's when you crank it up to be all in.
Well, it's great because we talk all the time about if you were just artificially structured and dialed in every single thing, how are you going to be happy? Did you choose it? Is it something you choose? So on my side is figuring out what you want. And if you decided you want to go on this path in hockey, every single thing you have. If you decide you want this in school, you want this for college, you want this in your personal life, every single thing you have. It's impossible to be dialed in every single thing, although Jeff did have his Christmas lights up just after Halloween. But seriously, it is really, really important that you pick the handful of things that you care about in your life and you go for them with everything you have. This is your time. And I think that's the best answer I have.
And since I'm the one who continues to overuse that phrase and then put it on a podcast and put in all the branding, I will say that it's to reiterate something I've said in the past. It's understanding the task and then executing at the highest level. Small task, big task, that's dialed.
How can I focus before a game? The noise and crowds make it really hard.
Well, we have chatted about this a few times with the modern day athlete. Finding focus is an extremely tough skill to develop. We're distracted every few seconds with our phones. Obviously, those can be a part of your preparation and focus, or they can be a complete distraction. So one way, and we're going to continue to reiterate this, is pre-competition, the breath work is key. Shutting your eyes, finding that solitude moment to yourself. That's a time when sometimes you don't need music. You don't need to be talking to your buddies. You don't need to be around anyone. Just find some quiet. Hear the noise of the ice rink or hear the noise of the Zamboni. Just find ways to get your mind off the chaos that is ensued within modern day life. And then I always like to refocus on 3 things that make you your best as an athlete. Find that quiet space, remind yourself of those 3 things, and then work to snap back in from there.
It's great you're talking about that. So you kind of covered what's happened in that moment. Let me cover the night before. Man, perfect time to visualize exactly what's going on. You're going to literally rehearse in your head what it's like to go on that ice. Imagine deeply with your eyes closed. It doesn't matter even if it's just a couple of minutes. Imagine yourself walking onto the ice. Imagine all the noise and all the things, and none of it matters because you're so single-mindedly focused on doing all the things you've been trained to do, executing what you know. Really deeply imagine that. And for a second, look up. Be afraid in this visualization. Go, oh man, what about this? Mom's here, dad's here, a scout's here. And then say, hey, none of that matters. In the end, it's what I do on the ice. You deeply imagine that and practice that. It will help you as you go to bed that night, and it'll help you be ready for exactly what you're talking about on the ice the next day.
I have something kind of funny for this. I have no idea if it was intended, but an analogy that I've heard before is like a hockey rink is called the aquarium. And if you think about it, an aquarium is filled with water and there's fish in it, but you can't talk to the fish. You can look at them, but that's it. They probably can't hear you. So you could try to think that you're an aquarium. Can't hear anything.
Natalie is an animal lover, so yeah. I like your analogy.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this is a perfect transition because the subject we're talking about today is really how you think about things. How you think about things determines everything. Happiness, success, misery, all of it. And we had this question off camera with Natalie, and she told us about this interesting crossroads in her life where she really had to decide what she thought about that crossroads and put a label on it. Otherwise, she could have been stuck. Do you mind telling us?
So it's funny, Chris, that you bring that up after that question, because I did refer to fish, and fish are animals. But we were talking about how my dream my whole life was to be a veterinarian. I was really excited to go to college because I was committed to the University of Vermont, and they're one of the only schools, I believe, besides Penn State, who have an animal science program as well as a Division I hockey program. So going to Vermont was my dream all throughout high school, and I committed there, and my major was animal science, and I was ecstatic. I was so excited. I was going to play Division I hockey, and I was going to become a veterinarian. That was my dream. I was doing it. And then things don't always go as planned. Your perception changes, your perspective changes. And I ended up transferring from the University of Vermont, and I went to Lindenwood, where I pursued a whole different career. And
so here you were at this crossroads, right? Before you went to Lindenwood, you're in this place you want to be. You're in Vermont. You got animal science program. You want to be a vet for small animals, and you get these dreams. You want to be in hockey. You want all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like the world's not allowing it. It literally was not possible in your situation. You wanted to be a vet for years. You wanted to be great in hockey for years. Those are kid dreams turned into like young adult dreams, and you could have rolled up in a ball and said, "It's the worst thing in the world." But you wound up making a choice. You wound up having a thought, an idea about this thing that would have really, really bent other people in half. What was your decision?
it wasn't an easy decision. I would say that my thought of transferring started roughly after my sophomore year. I played my freshman year, about half the games, which is pretty good for a freshman. And I just wasn't getting the things athletically that I went into Vermont thinking that I was going to get. That's just from myself, from academically, from the coaching staff. And I ultimately decided, like, I'm going to get more out of transferring and what I'm looking for to excel as an athlete and excel as a person if I transfer. And transferring to Lindenwood, I did get everything that I wanted to in the 3 years that I had there. But the decision wasn't easy. I did speak to a sports psychologist. We have one at the University of Vermont, and that helped a ton, just trying to put my thoughts into action, because transferring is pretty scary. And so that really helped give me the confidence to realize that these dreams don't need to define, and I don't need to chase these dreams just because I've had them since I was a kid. Like, your path can change, your thought process can change, you're getting older. It's really just realizing what you want to get out of life. And for me, at least in college, like, I really wanted to play. I knew that I wasn't going to pursue it professionally. I didn't want to either. And I wanted to get the best out of my college athletics as I possibly could. And I'm here today, retired, very happy with my decision.
Well, thanks, Nat. Perfect. We will take you out of the hot seat. We
Thank
know
you.
you're getting red. I'm sure. We'll take you out of the hot seat. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a relevant topic, especially nowadays with the transfer portal and the way that athletics are. So Chris and I will chat more on that and how everyone's perception is their reality. So thanks. We'll continue from there.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. I'm glad.
So I always hesitate to make things too complicated because I feel like it can turn into this academic thing where you're the biology teacher talking about the mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell, and people get it and it just goes through. And I just want to make things easy because when you're on the ice, it's crazy. And there's this really, really good concept in cognitive behavioral psychology, and it's this idea that our thoughts are everything. The things that we think affect how we feel. And it's a circle. So you start with a thing that happens. The thing by itself means different things to different people. Everybody has a different picture of it. Look at Natalie, and she's talking about this crossroads she was at. That crossroads to her was something where she had to figure it out. She had these kid dreams that were going on to being young adult dreams. And what do you do now when it looks like there's no runway for what I want? So that was this thing. But people look at it in different ways. Well, she looked at it as, not a great thing. What am I going to do now? It was a really healthy way to look at it. But some people might have looked at it as, oh, my dreams have fallen apart. It's all going apart. This isn't what I wanted to be. I want to be in Vermont. I want to be a vet. I can't believe it's not working. And you could be so upset about that things aren't going the way you want, that you can spin out. So in cognitive behavioral psychology, there's this idea that how we label everything determines a ton of our happiness. And those thoughts lead to feelings, and those feelings lead to behaviors. And it can become a negative cycle or a positive cycle. But Jeff, like in your life, I know you tend to be on this really super high performing thing, but when you were a little kid, you're this guy who had all the other little kid things, I imagine. You must have dropped a glass of milk and something happened, all kinds of things happen. But somehow, each thing you've seen in your life, you probably don't even remember when it happened. You've just decided, okay, well, what now? What now? I joke about this water going down a mountain and hitting a tree. The water doesn't care it's a tree. It's like, okay, tree, go this way, go that way. And that's kind of how you live. But thinking about this whole thing, about the labels you put on things, you've worked with people in your life or in people you worked with. What kind of labels hold people back, and what kind of labels help people move forward?
Well, really, the reality of sports now is like you're not done. Your dreams aren't done until you retire with your last game. I mean, the nature of sports with how many different schools a college athlete could play at, or hockey-wise in junior hockey, you could play on 4 or 5 teams in one season. The way we're treated, you're just a chess piece. You can be moved from one place to another. And for me, I was a kid, I think on the first day when an NCAA school can call you, I had 2 different schools call me. One that was kind of the first one to really show interest in me. It was Colorado College. They had an assistant coach who was a small goalie. So he kind of felt for me and knew my skill set. And he called me right away. I think it was in the middle of June. They could call me. They could have that first day. So I remember receiving that call and being like, I'm all in for Colorado College. And then my dad played at Ohio State. Ohio State called me later that day, same day. So I was like, I want to be, my dad played there. I want to be like my dad, go to Ohio State. And I didn't have this, I wasn't this die hard, watch the Buckeyes every weekend type family. I just, obviously you're a kid, you want to be like your parents, especially athletically. My dad helped coach me along the way. So I had to live this reality within those schools were interested for a period of time, but at some point they weren't interested. I'd read online and they committed to another goalie, or maybe they were respectful enough to call me. And with Michigan State, where I ended up, I remember literally thinking that, I'll never go to Michigan State, because when I was in the midget level, the level before junior hockey, they committed to a goalie for, a year that was a year or 2 before me. So I kind of was like, they got their goalie, there's no chance I'm going to go there. So I was kind of making my little hit list of places that I could go. But what I learned and what I didn't, it's not like I thought deeply about this. It was just like, go out, keep doing your best, keep proving people wrong, keep performing at a high level. Eventually, that door opened up. They were looking for a goalie during a year for me after I played kind of a gap year, an extra year of junior hockey. And lo and behold, I found my way back in. But I never would have found my way back in if I didn't have this continued high achieving, high level of excellence mindset. And for me, that was like the continued old fashioned set your goals, work hard to accomplish them, set lofty goals. And then, if you fall a little bit short, you'll still more than likely still be higher than the people you're competing against and working to achieve them.
So you talked about actually having a kind of durability to you, and you might not even call it that, but for me, it's the way you looked at life was, this is all an opportunity. I just keep getting good, keep going for things. That's how you looked at life. And, Dialed and Driven was something that you knew before you even knew the words. So that really helped you see everything different. And it goes back to this idea, this cognitive behavioral psychology idea, where the things that happen in and of themselves don't have universal meanings. Getting benched in a hockey game means nothing to somebody who plays tennis. You're like, I got benched in a hockey game last night. A person who plays tennis is probably like, okay, but the person there, it's really, really hard. And all of hockey, it's so up and down because these are businesses. We talk about this, and it's not inherently evil. It's just a business where people are trying to make it all work. And once you look at that, once you have a label for that and say, okay, it's a business and here's the opportunity, then you have a chance to see it as an opportunity. Some of it might be frustrating, but it's an opportunity. But I don't know how many 10-year-old kids tried to make a team and they didn't. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. How many 13-year-old kids trying to get this and it didn't work out? First year of Bantam, you get your head blown up and it's the worst thing in the world. I had a concussion. Is it the worst thing? We get to put labels on things all the time. And we can label them as awful or terrible. We can label ourselves as awful or terrible. Or we can go, hey, I didn't like this one bit. This sucks. Get mad. Be frustrated. And then decide what now and what's the label I'm going to put on this. And the label is there are many, many things that are disappointing in life. But we get to choose a new label all the time, which helps us get a new path.
And from being around the youth athletes, many times I know what their perception is if they get cut from a team or they got benched in the third period or was their chance to start in net and they didn't get a chance, it's their perception oftentimes becomes, this coach hates me. They hate me. Whatever I do, they just don't like me. They just don't like me. When in reality, that mindset needs to turn to, okay, the next time I get an opportunity, I'm going to be my best. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show my teammates. I'm going to really continue to prove to everyone or myself, that I belong here and I should be playing. And you have to grasp that new reality as a new opportunity. Natalie, who was on earlier, she wanted to be in animal science and be a veterinarian. Then she had to have this new reality of, I'm going to go to a new school, get an opportunity to play, and I'm going to be in business administration. And then obviously had a pursuit in marketing. So that was her reality, but her perception could have gone one way or the other, as we chatted about.
Yeah, but that isn't how it always goes. Like you said, you got to do this. And you're right. Like if you want to have a happy life, you've got to find a way to put some kind of functional label on the stuff that happens. Some sort of positive, hopeful, realistic thing. I mean, honestly, if you all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to be a Stanley Cup champion when you're having a hard time making a lower level team, I mean, chances are that's probably a little crazy. But there's no reason you can't have that as a thing. But you got to find some way to put some labels on what's hopeful, what's possible. Because if you do what most people do, and the truth is, most people live, and this comes up over and over again, this idea, most people live lives of sort of mediocrity and lives of quiet desperation. They do, because life isn't so easy. I get it. It hurts when you fall down and scrape your knee. It hurts when this doesn't work or that doesn't work. But when it comes down to it, there's so much good if you can make peace with the bad and put a label on it saying, okay, that's a factor of life, but now what do I want and how am I going to label it? But your choice is the right thing. You got to do it. Please do it. It's a chance to actually have a career that you're happy about, have something that feels like, man, I'm moving through and actually excited about each day.
And I think that feeling of hope is also an important element in athletics. And I know I have two really good friends who are coaches right now. One's NCAA Division I college hockey coach. The other one's professional coach Mike Leone, who was on with us previously. Both at one point during their youth days, late teens, early 20s, were uber passionate and told people directly, I'm going to coach in the NHL one day. I'm going to coach in the NHL. And both have followed their passion and pursuit and are at super high levels and are a step away from being in the NHL. But that was ingrained in them as teenagers and early 20s. So they were hopeful, but they also then grinded through and found a way to work their way along the way.
Absolutely. Leone's fantastic, by the way. In our interview with him, it was amazing how real he was about bumping his head on life and having to figure it out. He's super vocal about this wasn't some easy curve for him and everything was just great. And every time he hit his head, he's like, okay, this is where I am. What am I going to do? And it's so great because he's a perfect example of, okay, well, here's another label. Label is hopeful, possible, here's the path. Hopeful, possible, here's the path. And there's a degree of feeling crappy. I'm all for puking stuff out. But you don't want to live there. Get it out and move on because there's so much possible. And Leone's a great thing. I do want to say this thing. You see, gosh, thousands of kids you've worked with in your career. And when I say kids, I mean like you work and interact with guys who are in the pros, guys in college, guys who are 8 years old in house leagues trying to make things work. You've worked with a whole spectrum of people, whether it's personally or in goalie skills. What are the thoughts that you see that you just know a kid's thinking that's holding them back when they come to an 8 a.m. practice and they have no energy? What's the thought you see in them that you know is just killing them? And you're like, come on, man, you're on the ice. You could have something. What kind of stuff do you see that you know it's like, man, I wish he could change that thought into this thought?
It's that switch of this, you don't have to do this. This is your opportunity to enjoy it. And I loved hockey. I loved any time I could play it. And I think that was just something where we've talked about the pressure wasn't there to just be perfect every time. It was just pure enjoyment. And you had the cadence there of hopeful, possible, go pursue it. But then the reality is expect adversity. There's always adversity. There's always going to be something along the way. Don't expect a perfect Picasso every time you get on the ice or in your training sessions. Like, that's the other element where you have to expect it. And then you have to have that problem solving mentality. So stay hopeful, but expect the adversity. And I can see that with the athletes when they're kind of not themselves and just kind of in a flowed state, there's that adversity or second guessing themselves holding them back. And it's somewhat disappointing to see because you're almost questioning and scratching your head like, how are you just not loving this? How are you just not eating up every moment that you're having your parents pay for a private trainer to help you play hockey? But unfortunately, their perception is, I have to go do this session, which is the tough balancing act of trying to be a coach and mentor and pull the best out of kids because you truly want them to just love it, enjoy it, and be the best they can be.
Yeah, you bring up this great point, this idea of you don't have to be here. And I realize maybe there are some people who are being forced, but very rarely do parents force their kids all the time. But yeah, this you don't have to be there. And one of the best things I know when I'm talking to somebody and they just feel the weight of the world on them, I talk about, hey, you don't have to do this. And we really talk about this idea of taking your ball and going home, because there's something freeing about knowing that you don't have to do it. And when you get in that moment, you can decide, well, what do I really want to do? And I'll tell you that 99% of the time, maybe almost 100%, once I take that pressure off, somebody still wants to be there. There's just something that sucked, and the labels they put on it, I got to, I have to, it's overwhelming, got so much stuff on me. You can just be stuck. You could be like a spinning top going nowhere. And it's amazing when you get to this point where you can find a new label, and that's it. Okay, well, I want this. And like you said, there's going to be stuff in the way, and this is what I want, and I'm hopeful for this, and I'm excited to go get this, and I've got to handle this. The better the label, the better the opportunity, the better the motivation, the better the passion, the better the result.
Yeah, and I think as we're trying to provide some actionable steps, because as kids are growing up, we don't know all this. We're not sitting there thinking as youngsters like, I should change my mind into being super grateful for this practice, right? I've never thought that. I've never seen a kid be able to eloquently say that. But I think we can give them some easy little reminders. I know you're big on having that visual cue on a player's stick. It could be something as, I get to play tonight. Just have that simple reminder for yourself. It could be on your glove, could be on your stick. Keep using every time you're on the ice as that awesome opportunity that it is, as opposed to, I can't believe we have late practice tonight. Now I have to go back to the rink. Like, how are you going to have a good practice or a good game if that's where your mindset is going in?
No, for sure. And let me just go back to reality for a second. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian ever, he's got 1 million medals. He actually admitted later, he used to frustrate me early in his career because he said he never really thought anything negative. But the truth came out later, and he said, hey, there are so many days I didn't want to train. So many days I just didn't want to. He'd train on holidays, he'd train on birthdays, and fun events, miss parties, all these kinds of things. And for him, he had made a decision. He was going to train every day. If he's going to be an Olympian, he's going to train like nobody else did. And he said there were dozens of days a year where he didn't want to do it. So sometimes you can't magic yourself into it. Some days you're not going to feel great. But even for him, the truth is that if it doesn't feel good, we got to find a new label for it. And that's it. Maybe I don't want to do it right now, but I'm an Olympian and I'm going to do things other people don't. I'm off to the pool. So it really is true for everybody. So I guess as a wrap up for today, we really have this thing that can change your life. And it's this idea, you have so much more power than you think you have. You are not a victim of the world. Now, certainly you can be victimized. Things can happen. But You do not have to stay a victim. You do not have to stay beat down. You do not have to stay stuck in disappointment or frustration or I suck, I'm awful and terrible and piece of crap letting my coach down. All the things I hear all the time. You don't have to stay in that. You can find a way to go for the things you want, feel awful, get it off your chest, and find the new label. Where is the hope? Where is the possibility? Where is the path? So you have a life that feels like a life, a career that feels like a career that feels like a career, a hockey path that goes as far as you can go, make it or die trying. That's what we want. That's styled and driven. Jeff, you want to finish this out?
And really understand that sports and athletics, hockey in particular, is unpredictable. You cannot just draw up your next 10 years of where you're going to play, who your coach is going to be, and how everything's going to go. When I was at Michigan State, obviously we had very good success there, and I had personal success. I never thought I'd be playing that many games in AA pro hockey or playing in pro leagues in Italy, France, and Denmark, which are kind of the equivalent of AA pro hockey on that side of the pond. So I had to continuously readapt, re-evolve, find the positive, find that spin of, hey, it's a new opportunity. And I found pure enjoyment and more love of the game when I took off that thought process where, I can't believe I'm not in the NHL with the rest of my buddies. It was just, wow, I get to live in the French Alps, a beautiful part of the world. What a beautiful opportunity for this. And again, that comes with years and experience. But as youngsters, there might be a new player coming to supposedly take your spot, or the coach might get, kind of released during midway through the year and you got to adapt to someone new, or college players are transferred in the transfer portal and you used to be the starter. Now you're the backup. What are you going to do to readjust and truly kind of stay nimble and stay in that positive frame of mind to keep trying to find the best that you can be? So thank Natalie. Thank you, Chris, for coming on, giving us all of our points. As a reminder to all of our listeners, remember to stay dialed and stay driven on accomplishing your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success. And for any of those listeners that want to get their questions answered on our show, you can send us a message on social, on Instagram, if you aren't worried about being anonymous. If you don't want your name included in the question, you can go to our website, goaliementors.com/dialed and driven. And there's a form there to fill out. We look forward to answering those and also continuing to inspire you to stay dialed and stay driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success.
One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Styled and Driven.